Hello, my name is Michael, your F5 dedicated account manager. I've had a few calls with your team over the last couple of weeks, and they invited me here today to discuss Shape Security by F5 and how Shape might be a good fit for you and your current business challenges. Before we get into that conversation, however, I wanted to ask you if there are any questions that you would like to make sure that you have answered before we walk out of here today. What I would like to do is annotate those on the board and then check them off as we address them throughout today. Okay, great, thank you. So typically I'll start with a 10 to 15 minute overview, whiteboarding at a high level, our solution, and then take the last 45 minutes or so to better understand your current business challenges and how F5 might be able to help solve those challenges for you. Initially, we had this set for an hour. Does an hour still work for you? That's fantastic. Okay, well, let's jump in then. Security is always a top priority. And F5's role as a full proxy and its position between your customers and your data uniquely positions us to mitigate fraud and attacks from bad actors. The footprint provided by both Big IP as well as NGINX provides deep visibility into the application landscape. We've leveraged that to observe how bad actors have evolved their attacks. And what we've seen is a rapid evolution in attack sophistication. The most damaging attacks which affect your users are bypassing mainstream security capabilities that are in place today. Well, why is that? Well, that's because sophisticated attacks no longer have to rely on security misconfigurations or coding errors or vulnerabilities in your application. Instead, they work against correctly coded applications that have been security scanned and developed with security in mind. Right, so let's sketch out a basic environment just to run through that. I'm going to put a couple application servers out here. That's a 2. And then I'm going to draw cloud. Okay? So these are your application servers, whether they're on-prem or they're in a cloud or multi-cloud environment. To protect them, you have a security layer with, and we're just going to draw a security layer out here, most likely intrusion detection, right? Intrusion prevention, data loss prevention, and let's just say next generation firewall. Just to give a real general outline of a security layer here. Okay. These components are constantly monitoring for fraudulent traffic. The attacks we're talking about, though, use disguised traffic or synthetic identities and emulate real customers. As many security researchers, including F5 Labs, have found, 85% of today's attacks leverage identity. Right? They leverage user identity. So the attackers are able to walk past your application or your security and right into your application's front door, pretending to be one of your actual customers. Here, let's take a look at, here's a customer. So here's Bob. Bob's a happy guy. And Bob's doing his business, and he's utilizing your application, and he's going through the security layer. Everything's good to go. He's going up into the cloud, or he's going up to your application servers, and he's accessing your application. That's the way we want things to operate. Okay? Everything's doing its job. Everything's good. But even many of the most sophisticated consumer-facing enterprises in the world can't tell the difference between what is legitimate traffic to what is malicious traffic, and it's one of the biggest challenges out there today. So I'm going to switch over, and we're going to draw a bad guy, and we're going to draw him as a bot. So we'll give him a square head, and we're going to make him mean. Give him a little couple antennas. So you've got your malicious actors out there, okay? And to successfully attack applications that have otherwise well-coded, they're secure, attackers have to lie about who they are. And they're going to lie in three fundamental ways. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to pretend that they are human. And how do they do this? Well, these criminals use programs that emulate or mimic human behavior. Okay? They do this so that they can perform a large number of tasks like logging in without requiring thousands of actual human beings to get that task done. The second thing they're going to do is they're going to pretend to be good. Okay? Now, how do they do that? Well, they do that by hijacking a legitimate user's electronic fingerprint, meaning that they're emulating the user's computer down to the browser and session cookies. Okay? The third way, this is the big way, third way they do this is they pretend to be a specific person. Okay? This type of attack is the hardest to defeat because the criminals in this category will typically have stolen all of the information from your customer that security uses to validate that user's identity. And what this does is this allows them to walk right past your security layer and right into your applications. Okay? So seeing this problem, F5 went out in the industry to see, okay, who's dealing with this the best? And we saw the same solution coming up over and over again. It was battle tested and it was present in a lot of our major accounts. And that was Shape Security. Okay? Let me tell you a little bit about how Shape fits into the F5 family. First, Shape is a fully managed service that delivers the outcome of bot-free and fraud-free traffic. Second, Shape's core offering operates as a reverse proxy. So that sits in line with your traffic. Okay? Shape can defeat bots or defeat attackers no matter how they're trying to lie. So how does it do that? Well, we accomplish this by concentrating on the fundamental areas of identity. And Shape uses obfuscated JavaScript queries, right? They send obfuscated JavaScript queries back to requesters to verify elements of their environment and their profile. Now, when I say obfuscated, what I'm referring to is it's unintelligible to both users and attackers. So that means there's no impact on your customers and your users, but there's also nothing for that attacker to key in on. To do this, Shape uses proprietary encryption that is per customer, per app, byte-level encoding. Shape uncovers all of the lies to defeat bots, fight fraud, reduce friction for legitimate users. As an interesting side fact, Shape is actually the #1 contributor to JavaScript standard and is the most influential vendor to the JavaScript standard. So this is how it works, but what I find really interesting are real-life examples of how that solution operates in the wild and how it's been beneficial to customers we've worked with. So I want to share a couple of examples, a couple stories with you that highlight what customers have experienced in working with F5 and Shape. So the first example that I'm going to use is a significant US telco. Okay? So this US telco was experiencing 10 million login attempts per day. And they knew something was off because there was none of the downstream effect to their business of valid traffic. So they engaged the Shape team, and we came in and took a look at their traffic. Well, we saw this, obviously, this massive amount of traffic. There was really no discernible pattern on the surface. But when we look closer at the traffic, using our proprietary methods to discern good traffic from bad traffic, we saw that the legitimate human traffic as a part of this was only 6% of this overall number. So 94% was bad. Okay, let's put that in perspective a little bit. This telco was experiencing approximately 9.5 million fraudulent login attempts per day. When we implemented Shape, it mitigated those fraudulent login requests within a day. And I'm sure you can see the cost benefit to eliminating that load of so many requests on the system, especially if there was any sort of per transaction charge anywhere in their cloud environment. Second example that I wanted to share was an online retailer or e-tailer, right? And they were utilizing gift cards for their clients. Well, they were struggling with a massive amount of fraud. Let's put e-tailer. A massive amount of fraud that was causing a tremendous amount of friction for their customers, and it was causing huge dollar losses for them. Well, in an attempt to solve the problem, they had implemented a solution from another company, and that solution blocked around 90% of the traffic. Okay, so 90% of that traffic was blocked. So, good solution, good enough, right? Everybody should be happy. Well, at first, they were happy. But then they quickly realized that they were still experiencing those huge dollar losses and customer frustration. The solution had successfully eliminated 90% of the traffic, but the loss in dollars had only dropped around 20%. Why is that? Well, that's because the majority of losses come from the most sophisticated attacks. So you had 10% of the traffic resulting in 80% of the loss. Right? So the customer engaged F5 and Shape, and we went in and we looked at their traffic. We analyzed their traffic for a week. On day 7, we implemented or switched over to active mitigation. Shape eliminated that remaining 10% of the traffic within a couple of days. That was all taken care of. So, but here's where the story gets really interesting. And this happens more frequently than not. And it relates to criminal behavior. Malicious fraudsters don't leave a high-value target without a fight. So within a couple weeks, they were back. And they had retooled their attack. But once again, Shape, being monitored by our Security Operations Center, reacted immediately. By leveraging our artificial intelligence and machine learning, we were able to flag these retooled attacks and mitigate it immediately. And we continue to see that same type of behavior, that same retooling happen for about the next 2 weeks. Okay? Every time the Shape Security Operations Center jumped in and mitigated the attack. So, given how Shape had broken the economics of the attack, the attackers ended up moving on to a less hardened target. So these two examples are very common to customers we have worked with and helped by implementing Shape in their business-to-consumer application. Customers are telling us that the only solution available today that can reliably block the most sophisticated attacks is Shape. These attacks are resulting in the loss of millions of dollars, and we can do that while keeping the application highly accessible for legitimate users, thereby improving their experience. So when we start out, how we normally begin with a customer is we do an easy-to-implement proof of concept. Okay? We implement the Shape Passive Detection tool, and this will allow you to see your actual traffic. And it's not simulated traffic, it's not theoretical data, this is your actual traffic. It's easy to implement, uses a span port or a tap on your load balancer, and installs in about 30 minutes. Okay? The reports that you get from that will show you your attack traffic, and it provides a clear picture of your current exposure. Customers who go on to implement Shape Security as their solution decide between two options. And the first option is our fully managed service, which is Shape Enterprise Defense. This solution provides live monitoring and attack resolution by our Security Operations Center. The second solution that we have is Silverline Shape Defense. So This solution's unmanaged, but it's constantly updated using the attack signatures from our Shape Enterprise Defense customers. It is a lower cost option, but there are mitigation services that are available for live attacks at an additional cost. These solutions are installed alongside your load balancer in the environment and implemented with Nginx via a certified plugin. All of these work together. So as I said, Shape can be implemented through Silverline as it's a part of Silverline. Silverline is our cloud-based enterprise DDoS and web application firewall platform. To give you an idea of the scope at which we operate, every 24 hours, we block more than 1 billion fraudulent login requests, okay? At the same time, we allow or ensure that over 150 million legitimate users are able to transact business in a safe manner. We understand the faith that our customers put in us and that their customers put in them, and that one single breach can break customer trust, and it can take years to repair. What I would like to do now is I'd like to spend the next 45 minutes or so discussing your organization's business challenges around access management. I'd like to hear if any of the things that I covered today ring any alarms for you. And I would like to understand your strategy around fraud and abuse protection. Thank you very much.